Hi guys. Before we head over to the show, I'd just like to say that if you enjoy the content that I produce here and want to help support the show, for $2 a month, you can get ad-free episodes on Patreon. That's patreon.com/heavy metal tones. I'm also available on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. Please do head over to either one of those to support the show. If you feel so inclined, please do email me at heavymetaltones@gmail.com. That's heavymetaltones@gmail.com, where you can request, show ideas, album reviews, interviews, and so on. Otherwise, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Car crashes injure over 1 million of us every year because we're human. For over a decade, Waymo's been building a driver that's safer. Statistically, 10 times safer in the cities we serve. Not because humans aren't enough, but because they're everything.
Based on over a 94% reduction in serious injury or worse crash rates, learn more at waymo.com.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones. This is my 5th anniversary episode. Would you believe it? 5 years ago this day, I was stuck in my spare bedroom with my old Apple Mac, a crappy mic, and no interface. And during lockdown it was. And I thought, I could do this, why not? No, and I didn't think anyone would listen, which is hilarious. And I've got an audience straight away, which is amazing. And you've all stuck with me this far for 5 years. Thank you for doing that. So to celebrate the 5 years, I actually just did an interview with a band called Refestremus. They're from Chicago. They're a hard rock progressive band or progressive hard rock band. I spoke with, you'll see I'm speaking with Derek Ferguson, the band leader or the former of the band, Ian Burbout, or Bebout, the producer, and Jan Christiana, who is the bass player and vocalist. Now, this is a long interview. It went over 2 and a bit hours, so I'm going to cut it down into 2 parts. You'll have part 1 this week, part 2 next week, and hopefully part 2 for you to listen to and watch straight away on Patreon. I'm really back and behind on Patreon, so I've had some family stuff, as I've discussed, with my wife being sick. So it's been a really sort of like tough time. Anyway, it was a fantastic interview. The album we're going to talk about is Maury's Rock Boutique. And of course, we talk about all other things. We talk about Marillion, we talk about doom metal, we talk about all sorts of stuff, because there's some really interesting and there's some really interesting musicians on this album doing some stuff for them that you're gonna, I think, might even sort of surprise you. It surprised me anyway. So without sort of more of ado, please do enjoy this part 1 interview with Refrestremus from Chicago, a progressive hard rock band, with Derek Ferguson on drums, Ian Bierbaut on as a production, and Jan Christiana on bass and vocals. Sadly, they couldn't have the whole band on because other people were doing bits and pieces, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy this interview. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. So here goes part 1. And anyway, we'll see you next week for part 2. And if you're on Patreon, you'll have part 2 already. So that's a good sign up, $2 a month, $2 a month. Doesn't do much. You don't get a lot for it. To be honest, it just keeps the show running, which is something that is expensive in this day and age. Anyway, bye for now. Enjoy the show. Bloody thing. Sorry, Derek. I could see you there. I didn't see the tick.
Not a problem at all. No, I was sitting here patiently waiting. So I'm glad Jan called. I would just continued waiting indefinitely.
Oh, bloody hell. Because I was looking at the thing going, yeah, why does that not come in? That's weird. I verified everyone. Oh, who knows? Who knows?
I have to warn you, they're doing some work at this school that's right next to my apartment. And
that's all right.
I'm hoping you can't hear the small engines that are running and have been running since about 5:30 this morning.
Oh my God. Well, it does. It adds texture and context, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's all right. You were into prog rock, you know what texture and context is about.
Exactly, the soundscape.
Exactly. Well, look, thanks, guys, for popping on and chatting to me. I've got Ian here. I've got Jan, and I've got Derek. Hello, Ian.
Hello.
Is it be about? How do
you nailed it? It's be about.
Be about. Yeah, and Christiana. Is it Christiana?
Christiana, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And Derek. Hey. So Derek is you're the founder and member of the band, aren't you? You're the founder and drummer and sort of of the band, which it's an interesting name, Refrestremus. I have to say, I had to get my teeth around it. I was like, get it. So I kept saying it to myself and getting it wrong. And you got Jan, you're the bass player, I believe, but you also do vocals.
Bass player and lead singer. Yes.
Oh yes, that's right. And Ian?
Producer, and I mixed and mastered the record.
Yes, and I could say it's a fantastically produced album, by the way.
Thank you.
I will say that out there. For a modern prog album, it's not too. We'll get to that. It's not it's not overproduced, which is what I like about this particular album.
Cool.
But for those that don't know who you are, and there'll be people out there that don't, which is sinful, to be honest. You're I mean, I do love the term prog because that's who I am. I'm wearing a Marillion shirt. I must be a prog man. I don't like boxes and all, and containers for types of music because it puts boundaries on creativity. But you would call yourself a prog band, wouldn't you? Or a modern rock prog band, would you not?
I think progressive hard rock is a.
That's a good.
Sometimes we say Heartland prog to sort of distinguish what we consider to be our unique blend of British and American influences.
Because this is your third studio album.
It is
that we're going to talk about. This is the it came out. Was it early this year? Was it
May?
Was it last
May? Yeah, 2 months ago.
May. It's like I'm thinking. Well, because we've been trying to tease it up for a little while, this interview, the time sort of,
yes,
it's distance. But so we're talking about your third album, right? Which is Morris's Rock Boutique, which I must admit I like the tape because it reminds me of Paul's Boutique, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. So when I put it on, I thought, oh yeah, it's like Paul's Boutique. Like it's just. I think it might just because of the boutique-y bit.
Oh, there's a cat sighting.
Yes.
Second cat of the day.
I said my little one's downstairs sleeping, but she'll come up and join us sometime tonight. I'm sure she will. Okay. It's a little cold here. It's a little cold here at the moment, so she'll
must
come
be nice.
Come enjoy. Is it hot there? Is it?
Yes. Yeah, it's been.
I love the heat.
Been in like the mid 80s, But we've had a little bit of rainy weather lately, so it's a little cooler.
I love the heat. I really love it. Like here it gets down to about 18, 17, 18 sort of minimums, and then can get down to 8 or 9 sometimes in winter. Get very frosty mornings, but because we're in a valley, so you get the frosty and then you get the nice sunshine of the day. But I love that. I love the heat. That's why I moved to Australia.
What part of Australia you're in, if I might ask?
I'm in Canberra, which is the capital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So not a well-known city to a lot of people outside of Australia, but it's a beautiful city. It's if anything, if you want to think of someone to remind you, it reminds you of Washington. People that come here think of Washington. So if you've been to Washington, it's a bit like Washington.
Yeah, I'd love that.
The state or the city?
The city.
Oh, the city. Okay. All right, with the monuments and such. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That would
very much so. It's it's very much that way because it's sort of modelled on the American aesthetic of back in the 30s. So yeah, it's very much that way. But back to where we were at this album. So you got Morris's Rock Boutique. It's your third album. I really enjoyed 2021's Decoupage. I listened to that. I really enjoyed it. I liked In Tourist as well. Different aspects, Slavic culture and Romany cultures. This one's a completely slight departure, is it not? It's from the other two.
Yeah, interested in Ian's thoughts on this, but this was really the first album where we were able to it's the album where Jan and Diane joined us from Octarine Sky, and that's I think uplifted everything. So that's one aspect of it, and just the idea that for the first time we had a very consistent set of performers across the album, I think was really nice.
Yeah, because it does. I mean, out of the 3 albums, this is the most, and I don't mean this. It's the most accessible album for people that are not used to hard rock prog or whatever you want to call it. This is definitely the most accessible of the 3. I think for people that are just dabbling into the world of it, this would be the one I'd say you come into, and then retrospective back, because I think then you get the idea of where you're coming from. Is that right? Would you say that's correct, or would you go from the first to now? I always find it hard with new bands where to start.
Well, I think it was always our intent to be accessible. It's just that with every subsequent album, we get better at our craft. And I would certainly say that this record was designed to be somebody's introduction to the band.
Well, that makes sense then.
Yeah, but then I think we probably go that, that we have that thinking on every album. I would just say that we're getting better at it. More practice.
I'd add to that. I think part of the goal with Refestremus as well is to not just, let me specifically focus on Maury's Rock Boutique and say that I think it probably is also an album where in the back of our minds we were trying to make something that people who are not perhaps your default prog listener, your listener who's knows the back catalog of Marillion, yes, King Crimson, Jethro Tull, all of those, Procol Harum, all those bands that we take some of our influence from, that they can listen to it and be like, oh, interesting. Well, what's this time signature? Oh, what this is something. This is rock and roll with a little bit more of a different flavor palette, and perhaps be sort of a gateway drug, if you will, to the world of progressive rock. That's sort of a tightrope we like to walk.
Wonderful, because that's what I have to say. When you say sort of gateway drug, that was Marillion for me as a teenager. My brothers had been listening to Yes and ELP and Band of Graaf General, which we'll talk about in a minute. All the Mac Gentle Giant, all the ones that we love. And then Marillion came along, and it was my prog. Because I was a teenager, I was 13 when This Place Child came out. I was like, this is my prog. Whereas these things, it'd be lovely to think that someone thinks that Maurice Boutique is their prog. So going forward, they then dive into a rabbit hole and find a world of verbose nuttiness that we have with prog, right?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
craziness that we all love, that we all crave, but also with a slightly different, more modern edge to
Yeah.
it, which is what I got with Marillion.
I'm a huge Marillion fan for decades, and I've many times commented to Ian and Jan, who are younger than us, just how exciting it was when Marillion were around, because although it was Prog, it was, I hate to say Prog that was being successful, because that sort of seems like, there's the monetary aspect of it, and it's not that, it's the relevance, I think. Just the fact that it wasn't off in the corner. It was like, hey, everyone, here's something else that you could potentially be listening to that might be, elevating in some ways. So that's definitely a big part of what we're aiming for.
Definitely, the Fish era albums are just my golden albums.
I would
couldn't live without them.
Sorry, to interrupt. I was just going to say, I would say of all of the, let's say, the back catalog 70s, well, late 60s, 70s, and 80s Prog, the one tune that you're likeliest to hear on pop radio here in the US is Kaylee.
Of course it is.
One of those few tunes from a legitimate prog band that still to this day you'll hear on the radio. Which that in itself, in my opinion, is a massive achievement for Marillion and just speaks to their songwriting.
Yeah, and just speaking for myself, how many Kayleys did I grow up with? In my classes. And that was a name that wasn't really known, because I think Fish combined K and Lee, like a woman's first and middle name.
He
did. I wouldn't ever suggest this, but wouldn't it be something if a bunch of young girls cropped up named Maury?
Brilliant. You know what? And an interesting thing, like I was only talking about it on my show this week about Kaylee, is interesting because it's not an album that you could take singles from, and genuinely you can't. I mean, I know they did with Lavender and Heart of Lothian. I wouldn't have said I could do it. I look at this album, and I know you've had singles from it, but it's a difficult one to pick singles from, because right across the album, every single one of them could be a single. Genuinely, all of them. I mean, like my favorite on it is Samurai. I absolutely love that track.
Thank you.
Very, very closely followed by Cossack's Dream. I think that's another one. But you look at them, you go, okay, Storms, Cossack's Dream, Lakeview, Samurai, Hello New York City. They could all be in some respect released as a single. Which must have been difficult when you were releasing singles from it.
Boy, now I'm vegging for it. I think Lakeview Samurai, that's really the only we did some, we did Heller NYC as a single because we have great David Jackson on that song.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so we figured that there'd be some folks who would be interested in that. And the other thing was because I scream some profanity at the start of that song. We figured that there would be a desire to have a radio friendly version of that. So that made the decision easy. But yeah, Lakeview Samurai is probably, I think that seemed like the obvious one in terms of just commercial appeal. Not that it's terribly commercial in this day and age, but accessible, I guess, would be the right
definitely much so. Absolutely. I've made lots of notes. I always scribble lots and lots of notes when I'm listening to music, because that's what I do. And I've written here, I was listening to across the album. So you got your Lakeview Samurai, Deathless, for instance. Like I remember we talking when you said, it's quite a political song and it has that. And I wrote here, Forgotten Sons, next to it, because for me, it has that kind of, it's not as verbose as Forgotten Sons. When it doesn't know that's a Marillion song from the first album. And those that listens that don't know, from Script for Just as Tear, it has that sort of political edge that I think that the rest of the album doesn't have. Similar to the rest of the songs on a Script, whereas it suddenly comes out from nowhere. There's this hard political edge, a bit sort of Floydian in that respect. And that's the only one on the album that sort of, when I got to it, I went, oh, I didn't expect that.
Great.
You know, like, yeah, because I was going through it, you know, Lakeview Cinema, it's upbeat. Tonight is heavy. You know, the Lucky One, I love the Lucky One, by the way. Hello New York City, which reminds me of something from Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. But then it got to Deathless, I was like, oh, yeah, this one's a bit heavy, man. Like lyrically particularly.
I'm trying to remember how that came about, because of course it starts with this whole Slavic legend of Cachet the Deathless, and it's sort of telling his story, and then it's sort of, I think in my mind there was just some sort of parallel between his constant machinations to pit people against other people, and sort of some of the political stuff that we see happening across decades. I mean, that was certainly throughout my lifetime from the U.S. And I'd say it's not just there are other Western powers and Eastern powers, for that matter, that have done the same thing. It's just, but I'm very much into civil liberties, and I was just, as I was thinking about it and some of the stuff that I don't like about what I've seen around me, it felt like the machinations of an evil genius, because it's not, to me, I don't take the perspective, and not to get hugely political here, but no. Take it in. By the way, all opinions expressed are entirely my own.
That's right.
I don't take the perspective on U.S. history that everything was fine until whatever it was 12 years ago, and then suddenly everything went oh yeah, everything's right. I think it's been a multi-decade downward trend, and thinking about, all right, well, that's over a long time. It feels like there's this sort of negative presence always working in the background, and so I thought, well, you know what, I'll connect that with Cachet, and the bit of it, Goodbye America, which is like, I think the third out of 4 sections, makes it a little bit more concrete. But we've been as we've started work on the 4th album, it does seem a more pointed kind of album, probably in reaction to some of the stuff that's just been happening here. Things have gotten more pointed here, so I think the album is,
sadly,
So
I think that if I can jump on that, Derek, I think one of the remarkable things about the lyrics specifically for Deathless is not just that it's so appropriate for this day and age. You can, with the ever so slightest modifications, maybe close your ear for one word here or one word there, you can transpose the whole song to be in 1969.
Yeah.
You can transpose the whole song to being in another based in another place in history, because those themes of conflict, especially of conflict that the general population isn't behind. That's we're questioning ourselves. Well, why are we in this conflict? Why is this conflict even happening? And then combine that with the experience of feeling like something like that world you grew up in, that you revered, is declining before your very eyes, and you're questioning yourself. Is it this something that's actually happening, or is this just that tinge of nostalgia, or those child's eyes being opened up to the broader world? It's such a the lyrics and the genius of the lyrics, in my opinion, as I can say, as I'm not the lyricist, are that I think that it's you place it at a time and place in history, and it's still appropriate. It's still relevant to whatever was going on.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And what I love about songs like Deathless, and what's amazing about this album is what I love about prog in general, whether it's neo-prog, classic prog, prog metal, modern, whatever way you want to spill it, is that the album contains so much texture and different directions and layers you know, like it's a heaviness of Deathless, right? It's just like, whoa, this is cool. And then you get to, like I said, the Lucky Ones, where there's a flowery sense to it. There's a sense of of the Moody Blues. There's a sense of, you know, a little bit of wacky ELP in there. There's, you know, it almost has a bit of sort of the Berlin Bowie sound in there as well, and that's what I love about this kind of thing. You're not just going one sort of sound, 8 tracks, 7 like, no, this is us, AC/DC. This is what we do, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. If you like that, be my guest. But I love the journey, the roller coaster that you bring with this album. It genuinely put a smile on my face.
Well, thank you. That seems to be a trademark within my production work, like not just Refrestremus, but other jobs that I've done, my own work that I've done. And a lot of people see it, or a lot of reviews seem to see it as detrimental. Like this isn't holding together as an album, or this is inconsistent, or this song doesn't belong, or whatever like that. And I've always found, you know, with the exception of like some great albums like maybe Roxy Music's Avalon, I've always found albums where every song is kind of in the same world to be a little bit dull, and like it loses my interest. And maybe that's a me thing, but personally, I like variety because I think that that's representative of the world that we live in. You know, we talk about these dark forces, but then there's also a lot of light. There's also a lot of human kindness if you look in small places.
Yes.
And I just think, especially somebody coming from like the world of cinema, like I love movies almost as much as I love music. And to me, it's like, if you want to show a really violent scene, pair it with a peaceful scene. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
And so that was kind of my thinking in having these broad contrasts, that it's like, if you really want Deathless to hit, follow it with a fun song, you know?
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And it's I mean, I love my extreme metal. I love all, you know, chicken anything really. And people say, oh, that's, you know, it's all just one noise. And sometimes it can be. But I go in for it knowing I want that. I want 40 minutes of just no. Right. But then when I put on this album, I'm going there because the definition of an album is several things. It's all pictures in a book, right? If you go into a gallery, you walk through the gallery, they're not all in the same genre that you walk through. Pictures are different.
Yeah.
Right?
It's vignettes.
Vignettes, thank you. It's a small little look at the world of music. And also what it shows is the band's individual DNA. Because I think if you went and did the same sound for 70 minutes, you'd be like, are we all redoing this, or is it one person and we're just doing what they're saying, right? This sounds like it's got a touch of everyone in it.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's very fair. You know, that's the other big change with album 4 is we've got Jan's amazing arranging talents on this. So it that is sort of one piece of, you know, we all bring something different to the equation, and that is, I think, another thing that really uplifted this album. But Ian, I actually thought you were going to mention the sequencing conversations we had about the songs, because
we had quite intense conversations, because I remember at one point I felt very strongly that Lucky Ones and Deathless should be swapped. We should end with Deathless, but and then I know at one point I thought we should open with Cossacks, but I have come to realize that, Derek, you were right all along.
Yeah, you're right.
Because
put that down in paper, quick.
Because to end with Deathless, I think would have left people on an uneasy note. It's a beautiful note, but it would have left people uneasy. And I really like the fact that you chose to open the final song on the album with the line, you know, what is it? There was a time when I felt the world was breaking, after we literally had a song about the world breaking apart. And you know, it's almost like, in a way, offering a solution. And perhaps you can talk about the true meaning, the secret of the Lucky Ones.
I was thinking the funny thing is, now with the way that the lyrics for album 4 are going, it's going to be almost like, no, on second thought, it's everything really is just that bad. Sorry, didn't mean to get your hopes up.
No, sorry.
Yeah, no, the Lucky Ones is this whole concept that I encountered this individual who's just really very, very mean. Just, you know, um, s- focused on their own personal wealth accumulation.
Oh, one of
And
those. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it relates to the Cachet song because it's
Mm,
similar sort of mindset with that character, right? Just
mm.
accumulation, more and more and more.
Yep.
But for the first time in my life, I realized very intuitively this is a deeply unhappy person. And no matter how much this person gets, they're never going to be happy. And I don't think I've ever been persecuted, abused by somebody before and actually had sympathy for them at the time it was happening at an actual like sort of internal level, and that was
Yeah.
that was super eye-opening for me because I think particularly here in America, the pursuit of materialism and the belief that that's what's going to bring you happiness is endemic. And at a certain level, it's something
Mm.
I bought into myself. And to see somebody who's really got tons and tons of cash and is a super miserable person, I thought, wow, I guess I'm actually the lucky one in this equation. And that's
Well,
basically the
I
song.
love that. I love that because we've all met someone, haven't we? If we have to admit it, we've all met someone in our lives. In fact, I only bumped in one today, not as quite as a level as that, but where I thought, you miserable bastard. You go,
Yeah.
I took my grandson out for a little morning out into a coffee place, and this miserable bastard sitting next to me, and he's like, "Don't put that kid there." And I thought, yeah, I was going to say something, and I was going to tell you something, and I thought, no, you know what? You're going to toddle off, and you're going to be that nasty, that angry person wherever you go. I'm not going to make that meet your aggression. I wanted to stand up and deck him one, but you sort of go, then they win.
Yeah.
They win, don't they? And so I thought, my wife also was going, for God's sake, don't cause a scene. So
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, love, I know you. I won't. Um, but the album itself has some very interesting guests on it. And when you sent me the information first up, I have to tell you, I went, ooh, because I thought, I love VDG. I love Van de Graaff Generator so much. Peter Hamill is one of my heroes. And when I saw that you'd had a member of that band in and Cracked the Sky, and I was like, how did you come about that? How did you get them involved?
Well, I guess I can handle that one because I met David Jackson over 10 years ago at the festival that I work at, Prog Day in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which we will be
yeah.
performing at
Yes, I saw.
in
Fantastic.
12 days. When is it's September 5th, so whenever this goes out, it'll be September 5th.
Yeah.
And so I met David Jackson there years ago, and I think I added him on Facebook or whatever, and we were already doing some very VDGG inspired material already. You may have noticed that our song "The Devil's Return" on Enter East
Yes.
has more than a little bit of the VDGG DNA. And when it came time to do this Heller New York City thing, I think that at that same time I was reading Van der Graaf's book, and
yes.
it just so happened that at that moment, one of the book's authors posted online this video documentary about VDGG's New York appearance, which I mean broke the band. I don't mean broke them into a wider audience. I mean it wrecked the band.
It destroyed them. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It completely destroyed them. And it just seemed like it was a great opportunity to reach out to David Jackson since we had something that was kind of VDGG in nature anyway here. And we have a wonderful sax player, Mitch Lawrence, who can definitely channel that. but it's like, why channel it when you can get the real thing? And they're both on the
Yeah.
track. They're both
Yeah.
kind of equal participants. As for Rick Witkowski, he's my neighbor. And when I say he's my neighbor, he lives like one town over in Weirton, West Virginia. But his studio, well, I'm sorry, he lives in Steubenville. His studio is one town over in Weirton, West Virginia. But when I went to college, Rick would come in and do he would do like special events where he would teach students like, okay, today we're going to learn the John Bonham miking technique. We're going to mic a drum kit with 3 microphones or less. And I would just learn these great,
Wow.
parts of the trade from this great producer. And I had this awareness of Crack the Sky, but I've always been kind of like a CD collector, and their stuff wasn't really available. So I didn't have a chance to hear it until like recent times. But when I moved here to Steubenville, Ferguson gave me a list, or, asked me to put together a list of people I'd like to work with on the next record. And Rick was at the very top of my list, simply because of that West Liberty University connection, and also the fact that I know that Crack the Sky are a major force in kind of the East Coast U.S. progressive rock scene.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And, the original plan was we wanted to record at his studio, but that ended up not working out. But we recorded at Aardvark Productions in Steubenville, and Rick was present for most of those sessions as kind of like an advisor. He teched for the guitar in some cases, and he helped us with developing some of the drum sounds and parts.
But look, honestly, like, firstly, both those, because I love Crack the Sky.
Me too.
And I thought, yeah. And then they've got Kansas. You've got Joe Dennison from Kansas on there as well. It's like, what a coup.
Yeah.
Well, we share a publicist with him, and Ann Lighton. And so I've known of Joe before he was a member of Kansas, because I used to get promos when I did my radio show. Ann would send me his CDs. So I think in that case, we wanted a violin solo, and our guy wasn't available, who usually would play our violin stuff. And I was like, okay, well, why don't we go for this guy who we know through Ann? And to our delight, he was totally game, and he loved the song. So
we also had the connection. I mean, she's not here, but Diane, the keyboard player and backup singer, and I are also in another band together, Octarine Sky, and in various iterations of that project, but before it got renamed to Octarine Sky, we toured actually with Joe Dennison and his band Stratusfurious back before the pandemic.
Okay.
So Diane and I have known Joe for a very, very, well, by now a very long time. And we're very good friends with him as well. So Joe's an amazing musician, obviously, and his usage of electric violin just complements Caustic so amazingly. So it was a real boon that we were allowed to get reach out to him and get him on the record.
Yeah, and yeah, carry on.
So I was gonna say, and he's Russian, so we sort of figured maybe he'd appreciate Cossack Stream.
Yes, yes, I think he would.
Yeah.
But and that's where I come with this album. These great performers and all these lovely connections. But talk about the melodies on this album. They're so fantastic. A lot of times, with a lot of verbose prog in the past, where people get put off by it, I think, where punk sort of took we pushed against, was that it got to the point where they were just a bit too verbose, a bit too grandiose. Let's be honest, Rick Wakeman and things. I love Rick Wakeman, but some of his stuff, he's just like, oh, all right, okay, you're just doing this because you can, right? It's not accessible. But when you I said it before, this is a lovely accessible. The melodies on Cossacks, why I love it. Love the melody on Cossacks, love it. Love Lucky One. Again, I think it's still coming to one of my favorite tracks on the album. But did those people that helped in and joined in, like Joe, did they Was it written for them already? Did they come and add their own light and shade to the tracks?
I feel like they added their own stuff, really. I
Yeah.
mean, particularly David Jackson. And it was, you know, so like you, Marillion was, first and foremost, and I got into Van der Graaf Generator specifically because I read an interview with Fish where he was talking about how great Peter Hamill was, and so I'm like, well, who's Peter Hamill? Yeah, who's Peter Hamill? It's and so then went back and found their albums and just was blown away by it. But I was, even with Ian's connection, I was so starstruck approaching to ask for him to be, and then the fact that he wrote back so enthusiastically and so kindly, and he's just we got a chance to play with him in the UK at HRH, and he is such a wonderful human being. They say never meet your idols. In this case, I was totally wrong. It was like he was just awesome. And I distinctly remember when he sent back the tracks, and he was very modest. He's like, I hope this is okay. I can do a couple more takes if it doesn't quite work. And turning it on. And it wasn't just that the part was great. It was that it was clearly David Jackson. It's just anywhere you would hear that and you'd be like, oh, that couldn't possibly be anyone else. Wow. That was just, So I would definitely credit them. And then Ian, you actually went and worked with Rick as he was doing the guitar parts for Lucky Ones, right?
That's right. Yeah, if you can imagine, I produced Rick, or coached him, or sat in the the Rode Shotgun, we'll say, when he recorded that, because I went over to his studio, and basically the story is we were making the record with one set of musicians, and let's just say halfway through a Comet hit, and we had to reshuffle. And so we had to reshuffle. We had to find these folks, Jan and Diane. Diane can't be with us today, but we needed to find. We were still looking for a guitar player at that moment, and it was kind of like this weird area where I don't think Jan and Diane had quite entered yet, but they were about to. And so Rick and I worked on getting tones that were similar to that first guitar player's sound. So so he was playing a Gibson SG, which is what the previous guitar player played. And it was a great opportunity to just sit there in his studio and learn how he produces his guitar parts. And we expressed ideas. I knew that I wanted like a Beatles thing with that because, it's no secret that it's somewhat owes a debt to Pachelbel's canon. But like I was also, because, Derek didn't get into some of the finer points of what the song was about, but basically it elicited a late 60s Beatles feel, or even Electric Light Orchestra to me. And I was the one who brought the idea of let's homage Getting Better with it, that guitar part in the bridge. And if you go to Rick's Studio L, the Fab Four are plastered all around the walls, and it's like I didn't have to explain to him what Getting Better was. Like he just plugged in and did it. Like he's been playing it all of his life, I'm guessing. That was lovely. And as far as that was more guided. Like I guided him through the solo, what kind of solo we wanted, and so on. As for Joe, that was kind of an interesting collaboration, because obviously we didn't record that with him in the room. We sent the tracks to him. He kind of reacted to them, and if I recall, he sent me 3 takes of that violin solo, and Joe's a complete virtuoso. And we got some really jaw-dropping parts from him. And I remember sitting down with Derek and saying that I'm feeling like I'm getting lost in the weeds with these takes because I don't know what to pick. And we had a discussion, and we finally came to an agreement that it needed to be the most melodic parts. That even if we bend some really amazing playing, ultimately, it was in service to the song. So the edit that you hear is, I do consider it somewhat of a collaboration between Joe and I, because I picked the parts that were kind of the most melodic and stitched them together. And, in editing and listening back to it, I can't tell where the edits are. It sounds like it should have been that way all along. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way that solo in particular turned out.
Oh, I'm so because it is amazing. It is amazing.
And it's still virtuosic, by the way.
Yeah, oh yeah, and ELO is exactly. I didn't write ELO down and think about that. You know, all those things you going through mind when you're listening and like tasting notes of a fine wine or whatever. I was thinking I didn't put ELO, but I put all these other things. You know, like other bands like Gentle Giant, all that kind of. I thought ELO, bloody hell. And talk about violin, interesting story. I grew up in Hendon, North London, and we used to play football in the local park. And opposite that park was an apartment building. It's still there. From ELO used to live there. I couldn't tell you his name. I'm terrible with remembering people's names. But he gave a mate of mine's brother his violin that he played on. What's the second album?
Is that El
Anyway,
Dorado?
could be, yes. And I just remember thinking at the time, thinking, ugh, who's this old dinosaur? And then when I sort of got to my teens, I went, oh my God, I wish I'd bloody well, you know, gone, because he'd left by then, he'd gone, right? But I remember thinking, oh my God. And every time I used to walk past that apartment, I'd go, up there. Like, it's like royalty, right? Because ELO is just amazing. But I mean, the keyboard sounds on this album are one of the things that I find really wonderful. The guitar work is beautiful, the bass and drums, vocals, everything's amazing. It's I don't know whether were you using emulators to make that, like the Moog sound and or was it on genuine instrument, like on how were you doing it? Because it sounds like the 70s.
It's a combination. So Diane is obviously an incredible virtuoso. She's a classical pianist first and foremost, and a keyboard player in a rock band, sort of as her alter ego. It's a combination of certain emulators, but she also has a Prophet and a bunch of real keyboards that she uses very frequently. But then also for instance, like, you know, there's a bunch of my favorite synth of all time is the Yamaha CS80.
Oh yes.
I wish she had one, or I had one, or Derek or Ian or anyone I know had one. Unfortunately,
out the garage.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, you can buy, you know, a very nice car for the same amount of money.
Ridiculous,
as a CS80.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And so those things are obviously emulators, or you know, taking another synth and trying to make it sound like a certain thing. And then the textural side of it is all built over, you know, 15, 20, 30 different sounds that are summed into one thing. And so some of the sound design that I did, I worked very closely on it with Diane, and obviously also as well with Ian. It's my ethos with it is always to have that everything has to move. I don't like static sounds, basically ever. And so for those more soundscapey parts, it'll be, you know, an LFO controlling the panning, and then there's going to be an LFO controlling a filter on a different part of the sound that's at a different rate than the one that's controlling the main the main two oscillators or whatever. And building using and of course the digital realm is great for that, because you can build sounds. You have another dimension, you have time, without needing something like a sequencer. So you can build, so with Ableton, Pro Tools, and all of these DAWs, you can not only build a sound that you that have your sound at measure 0, measure 1, and then that's your sound, and you play that sound and you go. You can say, I'm playing a part that exists from measure 1 to measure 32, and that sound's going to evolve, and it's going to behave differently at measure 10 than it does at measure 20.
Yeah.
And that whole ideology is sort of core to the way Diane and I work, as far as the soundscaping side goes, because it makes it so it's not just one instrument one synth sound that you're like, okay, well, nice, but I bloody heard it now. Your ear is still interested in it, and we're so immediately drawn to motion naturally, just sort of instinctually. That to me is a very core part of what I do and what I try to do every time I try and work on a keyboard sound.
That's
And
wonderful.
From my perspective, I just wanted to add to what Jan said there. I am somewhat addicted to analog emulators in my production work and universal audio plugins. I'm big on the Studer tape emulator.
Yes.
As something that you can just put on a track that kind of eliminates a little bit of that, digital crap that, maybe you can't hear, but you can tell,
Yep.
And there's also the Ampex mastering chain emulator that I adore. And all this is just meant to add, I mean, there's literally a setting punch and glue. Like that's literally what this is meant to do is kind of draw something away from that like super digital cleanliness that you hear on every record. And we're trying to bring back a little bit of that old console sound.
Yeah, because it's true, right? Because the reason that this sort of albums are really special is because I mean, all of us here and all of your band, we listen to a lot of music, right? Our life is controlled by it. I don't think I've ever seen without headphones on or something. I'm always in the music at one moment of life. It is been part of my life since I was a very young boy. And what I really dislike at the moment is the compression. Everything's compressed and then leveled out. And all you end up with is this sort of blandness, right? This dull.
Yeah. I always use the TV dinner. Do you guys have TV dinners in Australia?
We have TV dinners. Yeah, we have TV dinners.
So if you don't like poke your fork in the little film, the plastic film on the TV dinner, if you just cook it inside, all the ingredients just explode and color the inside of your microwave. And that's sort of how I describe compression to people who don't understand what compression is. It's like all the ingredients are just kind of splattered within the plastic. Because that being like your shelf, and that's something that I'm very aware of and trying to avoid at all times, because most modern music I find absolutely fatiguing and unpleasant to listen to, and I can't even like get into the actual content of the music because the presentation is compromised to me. And some people have heard our record and think of that as like somewhat a step backward, or it's like not what they're used to. It's not the sound they're used to, but that's just what I grew up on, was that vintage sound.
Yeah, you know what it is though, and I've said this many times on my show, and I genuinely mean this. We as a populace, I'm talking about globally, not Americans, Australians, but globally as a species, we are musically illiterate. We used to be Let's be honest. Let's jump back, say, 40 odd years, right? A 16-year-old would go and see ELP, okay? A 16-year-old would put on Camel's Snow Goose. A 16-year-old would put on Genesis Supper's Ready. And not all of them, but I'm just saying a young man or young girl, and they would go and they would take them on a journey, and they would understand it, and they'd know what's going on. They'd read who's produced it. Oh, this bass is playing. Look who the drummer is. Look what kit they're using. They were musically literate, whether they could play or not. I don't think that's the case now. I think we have bred that out of us. So when they're so used to that TV dinner music, that when albums like it's a good analogy. I've got to remember that when albums like this come along, it is different. People do go, oh my God, I'm not used to it. It's old fashioned. No, it's not old fashioned. It's how it should be.
Yeah.
Not what it is. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
I think, yeah.
I find it very interesting that a lot of the prog and more sophisticated forms of rock music that are coming out today you look, where in the world is all this sort of stuff coming from? And a lot of it's the Nordic countries, right?
Yes.
And what do we know about those countries and their education system? There's mandatory music education from, it's
Yep.
Informed listeners. There's no substitute for an informed audience.
And
No,
dare I
that's
say
right.
that Australia is producing a lot of great rock bands. of
Oh,
late.
yes.
amazing. We're on a golden wave. When I came here in 97, it wasn't quite the same. The last 5 to 10 years, just this sort of peak, and particularly in the sort of individual, like the sort of backstreet genres, the underground music,
Yep.
doom and extreme metal and prog, particularly prog. There's a particularly fabulous prog metal band I like called Neo Obliviscaris, from Melbourne, and they're not an acquired taste. I'll give you that. Like, there is some really extreme stuff in there, but once you get beyond that, because I always say to people say, "Oh, I can't listen to extreme music." Imagine the vocals as an instrument. If you can't understand what they're saying, think of it as another instrument. So that, you've got your drums, guitars all going, and if you don't know what that is, just think of it as another instrument, another distorted guitar, and you'll get into it and you'll find the beauty of it and you'll see inside it. And I think that's what's happening there. And I think what's happening, same with yours, is that people will see into the depths of your music. Like the instrumentation on it is fabulous. It's produced beautifully. It flows beautifully. I keep going back to the keyboards, but I love them. I really love the keys on this album. Really
Diane's
do.
presence is felt.
Oh, I can hear like Leslie's going on. I can hear it reminds me when I first heard Rick Wakeman or Banks, that sort of like, or even, to be honest, some extent when I was even younger, what's the name from Deep Purple, Lord. That kind of,
Hammond through a half stack.
These sort of people made keys sexy, right? They made them sexy. When in a world of rock and roll where guitar was king, all of a sudden, people were looking at the drummers and looking at the keyboard players when they weren't doing that before. It was all the front men and the guitarist, right? All the Claptons and Hendrix of this world.
Maybe
Suddenly,
going back to somebody like Mike Ratledge from Soft Machine.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love Soft Machine.
Yeah, me too. But that was like one of the first bands that said, "No, we don't need a guitarist."
Yeah. No, and they didn't, did they?
No, they didn't.
All that North Sound, that a whole lot of that stuff from there. That what's it called in the North?
Hatfield in the
band. Hatfield in the North.
Hatfield in the North.
Which is always hilarious because where I grew up, when you drove down maybe 4 or 5 minutes on the motorway from where I was, the sign said Hatfield in the North. So every time we drove past there, I remember thinking to my brother, "Why don't you put on that?" Because he had an 8-track player. Stick it in the 8-track player because he had Hatfield in the North 8-track. We should do, but we never did. We should have stopped and just played it. That would have been funny. But anyway, so. You said you're working on another album, is that right?
It is.
Oh, I love people that keep moving. That's that's not rest on your laurels. It'd be hard to top this one.
Well, thank you. That's our one sort of mantra as a band is each album has to be better than the last one. I feel like we are rather set up for success this time, though, because for the first time I have a specific set of people for whom I'm writing. So
yes,
you've got that synergy. We're going to do a lot more in studio together. So there's just a lot of procedural things that are helping to push us forward. And I said, it is the first couple things we've tracked have sort of been fairly pointed politically. So there might be it might not be quite as uplifting an album as the previous ones, but we'll see how things go. It's art has to reflect reality, right?
It does, and let's be honest, some of my favorite albums of the world are the darkest albums.
Yeah.
Because there's beauty in the darkness. When you look into the void will stare back, and sometimes it is bright. So you don't always have to be sparkly and nice, right?
And I have to say that there is something about times of turmoil that feeds great art.
Well, that's the first part over of the two-part series that I'm doing with Refrestremus, the brilliant progressive hard rock band from Chicago that I'm using that I'm so proud to have as my 5th anniversary episode. These guys are really fantastic. The album is amazing. It's right up my alley. It was very hard to find an edit point to get the second episode in. But I found one, and hopefully you'll find it in conversation where we go from here is quite interesting, because it goes in directions of way I never expected it to happen. So if you are watching this and listening to this and you got to the end, it's on Patreon. I'll put the link in the show notes below, and you can watch it also on Spotify now, which is amazing. Anyway, bye for now. Talk to you next week, or right next if you're on Patreon. Bye-bye.
Car crashes injure over 1 million of us every year because we're human. For over a decade, Waymo's been building a driver that's safer. Statistically, 10 times safer in the cities we serve. Not because humans aren't enough, but because they're everything.
Based on over a 94% reduction in serious injury or worse crash rates, learn more at waymo.com.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at soundedouttogether.org. That's soundedouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
You've got social dialed in. Search is doing its thing. So why do your marketing results look the same as 6 months ago? That's because you're fishing in the same pond as everyone else. Podcast listeners are a different audience entirely. More engaged, harder to reach through traditional channels, and ready to act when someone they trust makes a recommendation. We're Acast, and we put them right in front of you. Browse thousands of the world's leading podcasts, book host reads or run your own ads, and track every conversion in real time. Same skills you already have, brand new results. Acast. Acast.com/advertise.